All right, welcome back to a bonus episode of the Blasters and Blades podcast. So, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies, a place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So, without further ado, let me tell you what we're doing right now. We're getting ready to release some of the archive that we found from when we were the sci-fi shenanigans. We're going to get those up there for the posts that were brought down. We thought you might enjoy them, and so without further ado, let us roll that beautiful. Oh wait, they're going to sue me. Play it.
Hey, all you crazy sci-fi fans. Time for your daily dose of insanity over here at the Sci-Fi Shenanigans podcast with your hosts, J.R. Handley and me, Chris Winder. Just two nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions. A place where the sky's the limit, space is the place, and nerds run the world. Without further ado.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Sci-Fi Shenanigans podcast. Today we are doing something a little bit different. So basically today we have a little bit of a round table, and we'll introduce the guests in just a minute, and we're going to speak about the recent development in space with the U.S. creation of the sixth military branch called the U.S. Space Force.
Wait, there are five? Who's the fifth one?
The Coasties, right? They count.
It's Homeland Security, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Kinda.
I mean, let's give it to them like our, crazy cousins or something.
There you go.
Cletus.
Cousin Cletus.
So this would make this the sixth branch of the military, and basically they would assume all duties for the tactical zones of the Great Dark Void. So some of these tasks are currently being done by the U.S. Air Force and probably other branches, and likely some that will be completely new. So we've gathered a group of military veterans who write science fiction to talk about the endless possibilities. So in alphabetical order, let's introduce ourselves briefly. So we'll start with you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris.
That's all you got? Well, he is a Marine, so we'll move on. All right. What about you, Edward Hudson? Can you?
Hey, I'm Edward Hudson. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I was an aviation guy with over 500 hours logged behind a M60D on hawks and hooks. And I'm going on my 9th year as a private military contractor, and I've worked in all the garden spots throughout the Middle East and Africa.
Wow, garden spots.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I thought
So
it was just a bunch of sand.
What he's not telling you is he actually is the janitor that cleans the porta potties at the military bases. But it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it, and we respect you, sir, for cleaning the shitters for us.
Well, somebody's got. I'm the highest paid janitor in the world.
Absolutely, because those bathrooms get a little raunchy after one too many MREs. So,
Yep.
outstanding.
Confirm.
So I am J.R. Handley. I did 2 tours in Mesopotamia, otherwise known as Iraq, and I was an infantryman in the U.S. Army. So what about you, Logan? Are you going to tell us how smart you were too and were joining the Army?
Yeah, about that. I was actually the dumbest guy. I was a Marine infantryman for 6 years. I did a lot of time contracted with the Association with State Department for protection.
Don't lie. You're cleaning the outhouse with Edward, aren't you?
I actually cleaned the toilets in the outhouse, specifically the toilet only.
Oh, okay. He's a highfalutin janitor. All right. What about you, Terry? Do you want to introduce yourself, Terry Mixon?
Sure. You've already given my name. I served with the 101st Airborne Division back in the 80s, so it's been 30 years ago for me. I was a OH-58 helicopter crew chief with the 229th Attack Helicopter Battalion.
But you did something cool after that. You want to tell us how you helped fake the moon landing for NASA?
That's a secret. I can't tell you how we faked it.
Oh.
I worked for 16 years for NASA as a computer guy once I got out of the service.
So you're not going to tell us the secrets of the soundstage? Dang you.
Dang you,
You're not cleared for that.
All right, so we'll move right along. So I have basically for this setup some questions to sort of spark a conversation. So the first one, and we'll, like you said, just kind of everyone jump in as you can. But what was your first reaction when you heard about Trump announcing the sixth branch of the U.S. military?
Jealousy.
I had to look to see if it was The Onion reporting it. Then it wasn't, and I'm still in shock. I have no idea what to do.
I thought it was an article from the Duffel blog, personally.
Same here.
Wait, those aren't real?
No, they totally are real. Totally.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Prophetic.
There's some funny stuff, though, for military humor. Sometimes they lately get a little too political for my liking, and they take themselves a little too seriously. But in this topsy-turvy world, it's kind of hard to tell what's satire and what isn't anymore.
Well, that's the Air Force guys.
That's true.
This is true. I think an Air Force dude actually runs it, too. So, but I don't know. I kind of knew it was coming because they sort of floated that trial balloon a couple months ago about this coming, and everyone laughed at it, and there was a few memes, but no one believed it was real. And then, lo and behold, one day I woke up and they're like, "No, it's for real." Which
Right.
The Space Force has already kind of improved the ingenuity of Americans in general because the meme game has upped.
Oh, yes, they're glorious, glorious. If you don't know what I'm talking or what we're talking about with the memes, I shared a whole bunch of them, and in the show notes you can find my Facebook, and they're also in the Galaxy's Edge fan club, which is sort of just a gathering place for people that, aside from the Galaxy's Edge, that love military sci-fi in general, and I'll throw that in the show notes as well. But it's hilarious.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the memes, do you even internet?
Right.
For real.
How can you avoid them?
So the funny
Not
ones,
let me down.
the funny ones that I like the best were the ones where like the expectation and the reality, and they like you got the alien colonial marines, looking all hardcore, and then they're showing the video, and the reality is going to be something like Spaceballs.
Yeah.
That was like my initial reaction, though, because the first thing I thought was Space Marines, awesome. I got really excited, and then I thought about it, and I realized that they were probably just need a bunch of dudes sitting on computer screens all day, messing with satellite.
Yeah. Outside raking the moon.
Yes, raking the moon. That was what I was going to go. Police call in TQ was bad enough with their moon sand, but I couldn't. That's Al Secundum. It's a city in Iraq, but I could not imagine having to do that on some of these other places. So let's get into the nitty gritty then. So, what do you guys think they're going to actually use for like ranks? Do you think they're going to go with the Army Marine Corps sort of sergeant, corporal, all that, the Navy Coast Guard ranks, or are they going to go Zoomy since they're taking the U.S. Air Force Space Command, or something different?
Like, can you make a rank Spaceman 1?
That is a meme that is out there, and I shared it. So, like I said, you check that Facebook group out.
But how do you take that guy seriously when he says I'm Spaceman 1?
Yeah, Spaceman. I hope they don't go Navy because, I understand petty officer first class, petty officer second class, chief petty officer, but then they have the weird ranks like third boats mates, mizzen mast, left arm, and I have no idea what rank.
I've never understood those.
Yeah, I hope they keep it really simple.
Well, I really want to see the TO&E for this, for what's proposed. My gut tells me that they're going to split, between the flight ops and the ground ops. So we'll probably see something kind of similar. You'll probably see the sergeants and staff sergeants, but at the same time, you're going to need, warrants and all that good stuff. Spacemen out there on the out the flight deck. So
you're gonna. I think at some point what you're going to end up is the Space Force is going to be sort of like Space Marines, and you're going to end up with the Navy in space too, because someone's going to have to run the spaceships at a certain point. But the other option, of course, is we could steal a page from Heinlein's book and do the Starman. What did he wrote? Starman Jones. Yep. But that doesn't sound as cool to call everyone Starman.
Oh, it doesn't sound cool to call him Airman either.
What's your definition of cool, man? I don't know.
I like Space Marines or, the Space Legion or Space Army. We could go with the cool branch.
I wish they'd just go with the Marine ranks and just leave it at that until they have ships in space. But yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, the Marine ranks, they did keep it simple for everyone because, Marines. All right. Send the hate mail to Chris So how many of you are putting down the Twinkie so you can re-up?
Oh, I did.
I'm waiting to see what comes of it. Maybe.
Yeah, I've gone full keto. I'm 3 hours a day in the gym. No, I'm kidding. I was just eating ice cream.
It was good keto ice cream.
I think it's going to be okay because imagine a 2-mile run on the moon. I mean, really, how hard is that going to be?
It's going to be bouncing.
Yeah.
If you're up in orbit, 2 miles is a breeze. You just have to like stand there.
Right, and it took like 4 seconds.
That's true. Do they make spacesuits in husky?
Yeah, I've actually seen that as one of the memes. Was a blob in a spacesuit, and it's like I aced my 2-mile run.
Well, I've heard that company that makes the buck naked underwear is making buck naked spacesuits.
Wow, that's interesting. So,
I just had that picture on mind. I don't know what to do with it now. I think I need to poke out my mind's eye.
brain bleach.
Yeah.
Face that, bro. Face it.
Oh, wow.
So do you
You're
think
a bad person?
do you think they'll actually take people re-upping from other branches, or are they going to go the Air Force route where it's like, no, we just want new people that never served?
I think the latter.
Yeah.
I think they may pull from the Air Force, especially for some of their higher command elements. But the Air Force has some pretty high expectations. I mean, Marines, really, if you can put an X on a piece of paper, and they don't even care if you're drunk when you sign up, they're okay with that. But Air Force actually has some standards, so I think they're going to go at least that route, maybe even more strict.
Probably.
Standard is relative, though, isn't it?
What was that?
Standard is relative. I mean, how do you... I had plenty of Air Force guys. Josh Hayes, look at him.
Weird's okay, but I think they got to be super smart. I mean, it's going to take a lot of brain power, a lot of math to get those kinetic weapons to land on our enemies, with any kind of accuracy.
So I'm just picturing. Has anybody seen Space Above and Beyond, where they had the Marine Corps boot camp scene with Arlie Emery?
Yes.
I'm just picturing that, like him going full bore on them in this, like the spaceman version of his Paris Island spiel. When the meme started, that's the first time I saw that show, because I was sort of busy in high school when that came out in '96. And if you notice, if you pay attention, his uniform, he has an extra rocker too. So
He does. Yeah.
the Starman ranks are they got longer, I guess, rank paths for them.
So we decided on
I'm gonna
Starman.
have to watch
Is that what it is?
What's that?
Decided on Starman then?
They went with full Marine Corps rank because they had, I guess it was the Hammerhead fighters that everyone was in.
Oh, yeah.
So I've only seen, I watched because it popped up in the feed and I was curious. I watched an episode. I mean, for 90s TV, it wasn't that bad. So,
I love that show.
Wasn't great, just wasn't that bad.
Well, I mean, the
Definitely, it's solid 2.5 stars.
I mean, it's definitely B-movie territory, but,
Huh.
I mean, it still was better than the new Star Wars crap.
No.
No,
It's not hard.
It had Arlie Emery in it, man.
You purists.
Well, no, I prefer a plot. Like, I get the sci-fi, like the green screen stuff is cool, but if the plot sucks, the plot sucks. So.
Yep.
Wah.
Yeah.
All right.
Special effects are only going to get you so far.
I got to tell you that thinking about things in space, I don't want to hear the first blue on blue kinetic weapon strike.
Ooh. Was that your planet?
Oh, yeah.
Was that your planet? Oops.
Yeah, that's one point in the wrong spot.
Wasn't it NASA? Didn't NASA lose a satellite because they accidentally messed up the conversion from feet to yards or something crazy?
No, what?
No, that was the Mars probe. They one computer system was on metric, and the other was on standard.
Oh,
so
jeez.
yeah. So when
Way to go,
they were supposed to
JPL.
Way to go,
be,
Terry.
yeah, go figure.
Now you see why I don't talk about what I did at NASA.
It was you, wasn't it?
Nope, it was definitely JPL. It was all their bad.
That's one heck of a mistake. Can you imagine? every branch has them. You call them different things. Nowadays, everyone calls them Carl, but that one, dumb private, whatever. Could you imagine what happens when we give him kinetic weapons and laser beams and space stuff?
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh god.
No.
There was a guy when I was doing helicopter maintenance. His name was Radke. He was your prototypical private like that. They make tail rotor systems so you can only put the blades on one way. He put it on backwards and took a hammer to make it fit.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep.
Can you imagine explaining that to the boss?
We had a guy in boot camp who pulled the pin on the hand grenade and then looked at the hand grenade, opened his hand.
Yeah, we had that happen too.
Ooh.
Gosh, yeah, this guy always looked like he was on the verge of a sneeze.
You didn't give him explosives.
Oh yeah, can you imagine?
The guy that did the pin for us, where he threw the pin and dropped the grenade. Of course, the drill sergeant was able to pull him out, as they jumped out of the foxhole. But he was the same guy who actually shot one of his battle buddies when we were doing the tactical move. Where you up, I'm down. I'm up. They see me. I'm down. Tactical leapfrogging.
Yeah.
He shot his battle buddy in the foot.
Jeez.
I'm like, dude.
And these are the guys who are going to have the tungsten rods. They're going to wipe out cities.
Oh,
Wow.
Hey, the drill instructors, they were just as bad in their own way. I remember when we were waiting at the range to do the grenades, we were on the other side of the hill, and they were standing on top of the hill throwing gravel onto the roof and saying, "Oh, yep, that's shrapnel."
Yeah.
There's a whole YouTube channel I think devoted to guys getting thrown out of the grenade pit.
is there really? I'll have
Almost positive.
I'll have to check. It's some funny stuff. Of course, what they don't tell you is that if you resist, the drill sergeant only has to try once.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
That's the way I look.
Oh, they told us that.
Well, no, they don't tell most of the civilians that see that stuff. Like the drill sergeant isn't got to stay there and die with you if you're that dumb. So,
Darwin.
that's right.
Yes.
Proving yet again that the ASVAB is not as infallible as they would like you to believe. So you think?
True.
Does anyone actually believe that?
I've heard that from civilians. They're like, "Oh, you got to be smart to pass the ASVAB," and I just think about all the Carls I knew.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So overall, what do you think about this this development? Do you think it's going to be as earth shattering, or basically just going to be the same old what the Air Force was already doing?
Wah, wah, wah.
Exactly.
My only hope, the only silver lining on this cloud that I see is if there's a military branch that needs something, there's a civilian contractor willing to develop it.
Oh, yeah.
So
Well,
I'm
that
thinking
was-
plasma rifles are going to be a thing.
Space
Oh, absolutely.
toilets.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Wonder what those will cost.
yeah.
Think of all the catheters that are involved.
Have you seen the Independence Day where they've got them in the underground Area 51 bunker, and the main character's father's like, "Do you really think they spent $500 on a toilet seat?" when he was asking how they funded all this secret shit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now I guess they just won't have to
Yep.
lie. They're just going to be like, "Nope, totally went all to the space stuff."
What I'm really hoping is
yeah.
that now that we admit that we're going to do this thing, they can go ahead and open up Area 51 and show us all the cool tech they've been hiding for just this moment.
Well, open that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a shot in the arm for technology. If you look at the space race back in the late 60s, that was a competition. So, maybe this might not be good for world peace, but it's sure as hell going to be good for technological
So
innovation.
how long?
Yeah.
Oh, damn, Ed, I had that written down. I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
sorry.
Oh, fail.
how long before Russia and China starts their own space force?
Oh, shoot. They already do.
Yeah.
They may not
Yeah.
have it labeled, but China's definitely there.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing.
Yep,
about,
China's
like,
been working on it.
someone posted a video on the Galaxy's Edge site the other day, and someone had said that it's about financial things and budgets, and I was like, you know what? At the end of the day, it's going to have to happen regardless because it's all going on right now with behind closed doors.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone's going to push that way regardless of whether we do it or not.
Well, and also look at with talking about the Russians. Well, we're still hitching a ride to the ISS with them.
True.
They're the only ones putting people in space at the moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow, what a
Yeah.
change of events that is. They couldn't build a refrigerator, and now they're doing this.
But they make some
crazy.
darn good vodka.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey,
Still
so
don't-
Darn funny YouTube videos.
this is true. This is true. So how long before we have our space vintage, our first space vintage of alcohol?
Oh.
Ooh.
Like 5 minutes after we get there.
So making a hoot with their space toilet.
This is assuming
Yeah. Space
this
station
is assuming
swill.
they haven't already done that on the International Space Station.
Oh, true.
They probably have.
Right. Well, who's?
I mean, there's Russians, Brits up there. You know they're not going to
Sure.
go without for too long.
You guys, you guys have been deployed and had the O'Douls in in the fridge over the
Yeah,
channel.
that stuff's nasty.
Put that on the roof to ferment in the sun because somehow the sun makes alcohol in it.
I didn't know that.
Solar radiation outside of the atmosphere may make that an actual possibility. Okay, develop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boy, there could be all kinds of cool stuff.
Did anybody play?
Or just with the booze.
Anybody play the game Fallout? The Nuka-Cola that was
Yeah.
radiated. Like I'm just picturing our booze getting sitting out radiated hooch.
Yeah.
But
That's how you bro.
so how long do you think before the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 goes bye-bye?
15 minutes.
You mean anybody's actually paying attention
Well,
to that right now?
China's already planning to colonize the moon. They just released about how they had a guy in there for a year in that capsule, the prototype.
Well, it's all about how you spin it, though, right? You can't, as long as you don't say the moon is ours, they can do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and according to the treaty, it says no government entity can take over the moon or any other doesn't say that Amazon can't just go in there and colonize.
And
That's also fair.
yeah, here's the thing with China, all corporations, all of them are part of the government. But they can call it a corporation, and then the government funds it, and they get there, and they haven't broken the treaty.
Ooh, that's an interesting development.
Yeah. And the Soviet Union no longer exists. Because I pulled it up after you posted that, and I was like, it hasn't even been updated. They're not even pretending that the Russian Federation is a part of
I
this.
haven't touched it.
I believe that what Russia did when it became the Russian Federation is they inherited the obligations of the Soviet Union as far as all treaties.
Okay.
Well, we did not mean that.
Yeah, they could back out, but I believe that was the intent when they started that. What I'm
That was
saying is how it's
Union.
going to affect weapons in space, because I would be shocked if the Chinese don't already have something in orbit.
That's
But didn't they just lose a space station?
Yeah, but they abandoned it. It's one of those things. That's junk. It fell out of the sky.
Well, that's.
Yeah, the mirror.
I mean, that's big for Space Force, though. Like, if they can't. I mean, if I read the act right, the treaty right, they can't have a military platform in space, like a base station, whatever, anywhere in space.
I'm pretty sure we already do.
Yeah.
Not manned.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be mad. It wouldn't have to be.
Oh well.
It's a facility, right? So it can't be a military facility in space or a celestial object. It says that's what the thing says.
Yeah, I think it's going to go right out the window.
So I guess
Right? Well,
I guess working around all those porta potties, you had lots of time to think. So good on you for figuring that out for us. So I always figured that treaty is the minute we could actually theoretically do all of that, like it was going by way of the dodo bird. So
Oh, yeah.
As soon as there's a corporation that can make money.
And you have to ask this too: is you've got 5 Lagrange points out there? Now those aren't technically, it's not a surface. It's where you're going to want to put space stations or
Shipyards.
cylinders or whatever, shipyards. All that good stuff. So who's going to decide? That's not mentioned at all. And that's a huge hole in that treaty. It's like, well, I don't know if we're going to do rock, paper, scissors or
Whoever gets there first.
get out.
One thing about the Lagrange points is it's not a finite spot. It's actually a fairly spread out area. You could have multiple stations in a Lagrange point.
when did we discover
That's a
them
good
though?
point. Yeah, they're moving.
Oh, I just Googled it. 1772, Joseph Louis Lagrange. So apparently they don't have an excuse if they didn't know about him either.
Wow, that's old.
Yeah, me either.
Well, not everybody's a history nerd, JR.
This was more a case of I was a Google nerd, apparently.
Interesting.
But it'll definitely, because there's actually already Space.com heard an article about it. There's already companies that are trying to set up with the sole purpose of manufacturing things in space from like mined materials, so that way they can send it to Earth. Because I guess the extreme cold makes better for building certain things, right?
Yeah,
Well,
and lack of gravity.
I mean, there's a bunch of companies that are trying to do things like mine asteroids. I think
There is
right now.
Yep.
So what? I mean, are they going to do that unmanned, or I haven't read that much into it. But is there going to be unmanned facilities doing that, or are they going to have people out there doing that?
There's enough that they can do with unmanned stuff that they could start the process, but it's going to require a human being or two at some point to do the stuff that requires finesse.
Okay.
Because the time lag on stuff, sending signals from the Earth, you're not going to be able to control something precise. You're going to have somebody on station.
Oh,
absolutely.
All right. Well, then, I mean, that maybe the fastest way for someone to get, boots on the ground and guns in space, go to diplomatic security, because apparently, and I learned this a while back in some class, but the Special Maritime and Territorial Jurisdiction Code of the U.S. states that the only diplomatic security can conduct law enforcement investigations and protection in space because of, the same thing that dictates they can do things like investigate on foreign soil.
So you don't think we're going to have a Coast Guard in space?
Eventually, probably.
But not right now.
I mean,
We need ships for that first.
But I've got some Legos. I can get started.
Maybe they can go ahead and clean up all the junk in orbit first.
Yeah.
Some poor private's going to be having like space police call.
Go ahead and please near Earth orbit, private.
Drive around some ready armored space trash truck.
This is what happens when you make the first sergeant mad.
This sucks.
Beep, beep,
Yeah.
backing up the space truck.
How do you burn shit in a can of space?
You just jettison it. It'll be fine.
You need to stir it in space.
But I've done that before. It's miserable. It's miserable. But so, do you think see, it raises some interesting ethical questions if you're jettisoning your biological waste, because at a certain point in time, you are seeding potentially other planets, because it's going to go. If you push it out, it'll keep going until something stops it.
Nice.
So, I mean, you could potentially be seeding, bacteria that populates another world, and who knows what happens.
Oops.
And then we'll have it's coming after us.
Little shit alien.
That'll be their problem.
Yeah. No, because I know people that have wanted to get buried in space, like they shoot the capsule, whatever, with their corpse in it, that have talked about that. And like, so what happens when those things just start raining on other planets? I mean, I could imagine the first one that went out, and it's like, that's going to be the first interstellar war. Some aliens, like, they threw dead bodies at us.
It's like the Crusades. They're trying to infect us.
Yeah. Dead cows over the wall.
The first alien that finds one of those is going to look at it and go, "Who is J.R. Handley?"
Why are there so many of them?
Actually, I believe it was actually Roddenberry was the first one they launched, or in the first group.
Was he
Yeah,
really?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Gene Roddenberry.
God, I wish I had money.
Well, when I go, I actually am a lot more low key. There's a company that will cremate your remains and put them into a shotgun shell, so people could go like fire you into fireworks. You laugh.
That's low key.
Yeah.
I would go out with a bang.
Wow.
You could do that. How cool would that be? Like you get to hunt deer one last time.
Oh man.
That was a redneck company.
So the dead J.R. Handley killed something.
Yeah, that's a very, assuming they hit the target, but that's a very redneck company.
The only way to Valhalla is to become gunpowder.
So on a serious note, what do you guys suspect the first mission of the U.S. Space Force will be?
Ooh.
Probably the same thing that
Satellites?
the Air Force is doing now.
Oh, yeah. Well, the orbital police call, absolutely. And then they'll probably have some sort of equipment layout for change command inventory.
No,
I don't
probably
think it'll
not.
be very exciting
Although,
to begin with.
when you think about the police call, I think we're going to run into the same problem with the orbital space trash that we run into with that floating pile of garbage in the Pacific, where the two currents meet. Like everyone's like, yeah, this should really be cleaned up. It's going to destroy the planet, but it's not my territory, so it's not my problem. And they don't want to spend the money on it. So I suspect that stuff in space trash is going to stay there till we could find some sort of automated like robots that could address it.
Yeah, I've seen articles on that where they're going to put robots out to collect it up and then use it again later. But
what I think they're going to be working on
Melt
first,
it down,
I think that they've got to worry about the fact that, the bunks, you can't get those suckers really tight for the inspection in orbit. Zero G sucks for bunks.
All right.
That's right.
Well, they've stopped shining boots, so I mean that might as well give way too.
yeah, how do you bounce a quarter with no gravity?
All right. Well, let's
No one knows.
let's take a quick pause in this conversation. We'll get back to the first mission, but we'll shamelessly shill for the man and pause for a word from our sponsor.
Looking to let your inner geek out for an exciting weekend of fun? What could be better than attending Congregate 5? A fan-run sci-fi and fantasy convention in High Point, North Carolina. Coming up July 13th through the 15th, 2018, with something to offer everyone, including chance to meet and interact with best-selling authors and guests of honor, Jane Linskold and Charles E. Gannon. Panel discussions on a variety of topics, fan group meetups, live performances, costume contest, writing workshops, gaming, and more. It's the convention to attend. For more information and memberships, visit www.con-gregate.com. www.con-gregate.com. July 13th through the 15th, 2018. Congregate.com.
All right. Thank you for sticking with it. So when you left us, we were talking about the U.S. Space Force's first mission. So I suspect that it's going to still be the satellites. But although I do think at some point in time it's going to be a national security issue in order to maintain those satellites that we do get rid of that space garbage. So
Yeah, no,
That's
I agree.
how they'll get the funding for it.
yeah, because it's going to start taking out satellites in the near future. And then, of course, you've got the issue with all those dead satellites, too, because we got a lot of our satellites are at the end of their life.
Well, what'll have to happen first, though, unfortunately, is one of the SpaceX ships going up with tourists is going to have to hit something and explode in order for people to give a damn about it.
Let this be a lesson to you. If you get offered a ride on a ship called the SpaceX Titanic, pass. The Lusitania, pass.
An iceberg of
Yeah.
trash.
Right, Lusitania, pass. You gotta think about these things, right? Like which ship you're gonna get on.
Is that really going to do enough good for that? Because, I mean,
Kobayashi
look at
Maru.
what happened when China blew up that satellite. Do you hear anything about it today? No.
But nobody died.
Oh, yeah.
It wrecked a multi-billion-dollar
Are we sure about that?
satellite. You figure somebody'd be screaming.
Well, the way the government blows through money these days, I don't even think, $1 trillion. They're like, oh, that was breakfast.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
the question is this, though. I mean, how far does this have to go before, with the technology we have now, how long is it going to take for us to get into things like actual military operations in space, for a Space Force to be a broader...
The first colony on the moon.
moon?
20 years.
Because
There's
our first colonies are going to be living in domes. They've already done real life experiments. They've learned a lot from the one they did out in the desert, the biodome. They did two of those.
That was Paul's fault, man. He did not do that well.
Yeah, it was a failure.
There were
Wigged
several
out.
of them. There's also a movie, but no, the legit one. There's a book out there. I've shared it before already about the experience of the people that live there. The real issue was that there was a flaw in the design of the building. So they were having, was it air issues, like air purity issues that they had to compensate for artificially, and like that sort of took out the whole detached thing.
Well, what about what is it? The Expanse use the plants.
Yeah.
Is that even is that possible?
You could.
Hydroponics.
Sure. Oxygen.
How much would you need though to
They're actually in Sweden. They've got experiments they're doing because they have such a shortened growing season and they have issues with the lack of arable soil. So they're actually doing like skyscraper type buildings with hydroponics that are stacking everything. And so they're getting pretty good about growing a lot of stuff in condensed spaces. So I imagine at some level you'll see some of that with regards to hydroponics. The other thing they're doing in some of the enclosed environments is they're playing with the different wavelengths of light. And so they can see that certain wavelengths help it grow different speeds and have different like results. Because with the light, when you've got the sun as your light source, you just get all of it sort of thrown at you like a scattergun, and you don't necessarily know which ones are doing what to the plant. And so they're trying to isolate it to make it even more effective. And they've already increased their yield like 10%. And that's all.
JR, you are the smartest grunt to ever walk the face of the earth.
I tried to tell them I was too smart for the infantry, but they just laughed and said, do more push-ups.
You know, I think
they're going to do most of this. I'm sorry.
I think that the moon is not going to be the first thing that gets the Space Forces going. I think that Elon Musk is going to colonize Mars first.
That'll be interesting because that's far enough away to not cause a real big problem, right?
Until they decide
He's talking about sending missions. He's talking about sending missions fairly shortly.
But it's going to be a one-way trip, so it's going to. I mean, the kind of crazy people that are going to go.
You volunteered, right?
Yeah. My name is on the list, actually. I did that while I was in college when they were doing it was what is it? It was like a Kickstarter as a joke. Like no one thought it was legit. Back in 2004, there was one where you could volunteer. I don't think it was Elon Musk's company, though. I think it was one of those like libertarian projects, like the floating city that never seemed to ever get built. So, because the whole idea is basically like the microstate where you don't need these massive governments, but I don't see how that works in a vacuum until you can like be self-sufficient, and that's going to be a while.
Yeah.
So they're going to be dependent on the lifeline of Earth. That's why I think the moon is going to be the best, because it's close enough that we could get help there, relatively quickly. Whereas if it happens on Mars, well, we just might as well send the caskets for them.
Right. Good luck.
Well, we say that now, but with all the money that's going to be pumped into this and all the research and development that these corporations are going to volunteer, so they have the next great product to sell the U.S. Space Force. I think we're going to see some crazy stuff the next 5 years.
Oh yeah,
and they'll have ion drives. That sounds like it might do a pretty good job.
The energy requirement, they've actually, like they said for a while, they thought the Alcubierre warp drive would work, and then they debunked that study because they couldn't replicate it. So
we need cold fusion. That'll be the next step.
There you go. Or hot fusion. I don't care which, but yeah, we do need that.
Didn't Matt Damon?
That'll solve and cause a lot of problems all in one time.
Didn't Matt Damon make a movie about that?
Matt Damon.
There was one about there's like he like leaked it to the Russians or something. I remember a movie about cold fusion.
No, that was Val Kilmer.
Was it Val?
Oh, okay.
It was somebody. I remember watching it back in the day.
The Saint.
Yeah,
was it the Saint?
Yes, that's it.
The Saint. Yes, the Saint.
That was cool.
So
that was cool.
All right, I'll throw that link in the show notes so you can see what we're talking about, people.
Voltron.
The whole point of this, Chris, was less show notes for us. That's why we did the round table. Jeez.
You had luck with that.
So how do you, transitioning a little bit, so how do you think this is going to change the world of science fiction?
I don't know that's going to change it at all.
I was going to say the same thing.
I think about a third of the authors are going to say, I told you so. And that's all it's going to change.
In the writing, though, or even the making of movies, it's all been going on forever. I don't think there's really much to change.
That's true, but a lot of us, you start with your world building with current events, and we extrapolate from there. So this gives us an actual starting point, or when it actually becomes a thing in the next dozen years or whenever. But it's, I don't know, some sort of common ground for us to start our next military sci-fi book, and you can something to call back to, for
story fodder.
Right on.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Right on. I dig that.
Or you could do the.
What I'm worried about, I'm not really worried about it, I guess I should say, is what I suspect is going to happen is we've got the Space Forces now, and then when the presidency changes, the next president will go, never mind. Just like they did when Bush said, we're going back to the moon. And Obama said, no, we're not.
I hadn't thought of what depends on how much of it gets established into law, because that's one thing we never seem to be able to do as a U.S. is get rid of stuff once they put it on the books. I mean, look how long we've been trying to reform some of our social programs, and you just once people get used to stuff and stuff being money, whatever, contracts from the government for fill in the blank, like we don't give that up. Heck, we still stockpile wool, and we haven't had wool uniforms in how long? I mean,
Right.
We're still paying some farmer.
Right.
So
There's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program.
yes.
That's right.
You're going to be happy that wool is being stockpiled when the EMP takes out civilization.
This is true.
We just have to figure out where it is, though.
Terry, you're my friend, man.
So they actually had a company that wanted to send like the whole contents of Wikipedia and like print it onto metal discs and then send it to the moon just in case. So, if
That's what they want to preserve for posterity, Wikipedia.
I know. Well, the other problem with that is if it really hits the fan bad enough that we need it, how are we getting to the moon to retrieve it?
That's a good point.
They could just put it on the top of Mount Everest with the rest of the trash they leave up there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yes, bodies and all. Bodies
So
and
there
all.
actually is a push right now to try to clean that all up, the whole Mount Everest.
Good luck with that. You'll clean up orbit before you clean up Mount
Well,
Everest.
they actually have started instituting like a mountain climbing fee, and you have to bring down X amount of weight of trash, or they eat your deposit of $4,000. And people are like, keep the 4,000.
That's
Like, yeah, take that.
So
Hey, you hump it in. If you hump it in, you hump it out.
that's my approach too. But I was a Boy Scout, so leave the place cleaner than you found it. Not enough Boy Scouts apparently are climbing Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Not this one.
So you're right. So the good thing with space trash, though, is if we don't know what to do with it, we could always just shoot it into the moon. I mean, into the sun.
You know how much energy it takes to move something into that kind of orbit?
Yeah.
No,
that's
I mean,
a good question, actually. I don't know.
you don't have to push it that hard if you could get the trajectory lined up.
It would take much less energy to slow it down and just let it fall into the atmosphere.
Yep. And it'll get burned up there.
We hope.
Most of it.
Plus, you start shooting heavy elements into the sun, eventually you poison it, and we're all dead.
Well, I mean, is plastic a heavy element? I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, man. Anything iron or heavier, you start slowing down that nuclear reaction. I mean, the sun is huge, but all it takes is a little bit of catalyst to get that started.
I think the metal that's in orbit is mostly aluminum and titanium anyway. Aluminum melts at, I think it's like 1,800 degrees or something. So, I don't think we should worry too much about that.
So is that what everyone suspects we're going to do with the space trash? We're gonna throw it into burn up in the atmo.
I mean,
At some
Sure.
point, I think it'll make sense just to pull it up, just to vacuum it up and recycle it.
it's like
If there was actually industry in orbit that could recycle it, that they could use the materials for something else, I think that's what they'd do with it.
Yeah.
Because it would make sense if you build a factory in orbit, you'd send out little scooters to pick up the various pieces of space junk and bring it back because it costs a lot of money to get stuff up in orbit.
Yep.
Okay.
That's true.
before it gets there,
Use the stuff that's already there.
So how long until we take Mercury and we just like asteroid mine the heck out of it till it doesn't exist anymore?
I did it yesterday on a nap. It's fine.
Well, we've still got Pluto hanging out as a spare planet, so
We'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
It's going to be the near Earth orbit asteroids that are getting mined.
Yeah.
okay. So you think we're going to pull that off in this lifetime? The mining the near Earth orbit asteroids?
I suspect that
not
the
mine.
first probes are less than a decade
No,
away.
I think-
I would wager they're coming.
Yeah.
Really?
20 years. About 20 years, I'll bet.
If you want,
Oh.
I don't think the first efforts are going to succeed, but I think the first probes to see what those near Earth asteroids look like will happen in the next 10 years.
yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, the other scary thing you could think about is some of them, like that one big one that you see everyone talking about that's on its way out of the galaxy, the really long, sort of narrow one. Like, what if we?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a spaceship. It's
Yep.
not. It's not an
Try to
asteroid.
ship.
So we're going to end up with a satellite that just lands there, and it's going to be like the calling card to the aliens to come wipe us out. Like, oh, what's this?
And Tiny Command ship is actually out there, and the SDF will land on Earth in the next year or so.
So does everyone think the Space Force mission is going to finally let us see what's under Cheyenne Mountain? Are we really going to know?
Mm,
No, we'll never know that.
I'd say Area 51 first.
Okay, baby steps. All right, because I want the Stargate.
Yes.
I want the flying saucer.
Walk through a puddle of water. Fight aliens. It's awesome.
Wow. So what? Those were the notes that I had prepared for the discussion. What did everyone else come up with that you thought about this creation of the U.S. Space Force?
I think honestly, the biggest issue we're gonna have is that the treaty from '69. Man, to be honest with you, there's so many weird caveats in there that you can't really work around it too much militarily.
Yeah. Well, the UN is toothless anyway. I mean, what are they going to do?
True.
I mean, they would send us anyway.
That's absolutely true.
We can violate it all we want.
That's absolutely true. And I don't disagree with that at all. But I would say the word of the law, whatever law you would take that as. I mean, there's rules, I guess.
I don't see UN lasting much longer.
No, I don't either.
Wow, that's optimistic. I think they're going to be around until long after they cease to be relevant in anything at all.
They're
which is like tomorrow.
And they're like scamming his way around everyone's junk. The
Yeah.
UN.
And when they find an asteroid made of platinum and gold, there's going to be so much money involved in that that treaty is going to just be tossed aside, and no one's even going to look at it. Or if we find an asteroid full of oil, we're going to have to take freedom to that.
Take freedom to that.
As soon as a private company finds a very productive asteroid, it makes me wonder whether the U.S. government will try to take part of it.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Will they try to nationalize it? It's possible.
What's the tax rate going to be in space?
0%, baby.
Oh no, they'll tax the heck out of it, and I think the Space Force will be the tax collectors.
Yep,
and they're also going to be the guys protecting the mining rigs out in space.
A military town.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Clark.
And I think that's where the conflict's going to start. It's going to start over some big rock.
So if we do that, the minute we start having bases on like the Mars and the Moon, you're going to end up with all the seedy establishments that follow military bases since the dawn of time.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
spacecraft.
Is this where you bring in you dying from something falling to the ceiling from space while you're with the prostitute, but you haven't completed the deal yet?
It's too soon, okay? Too soon.
Yeah. Financing eating up.
Only 90% interest.
Oh man.
So
yeah.
I'm wondering if the Space Force personnel are going to spend enough time alone and kind of isolated from everybody else, if they're going to come up with their own culture, or if the E4 Mafia is going to follow them up there too.
That's actually the trick. You're not going to be alone ever. So the culture is going to change to, let's just do this in public.
So they the good thing about some of the seedy establishments that do follow the military is at least the poles that people like to dance with will help them from floating away until we can develop artificial gravity.
That's true. And if you're going to have those, I wonder when the first pawn shop in space is going to happen.
A reality TV show, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Right after the first paycheck.
The Real Housewives of Mars.
Exactly.
Oh wow! This is going to be a reality show. You know it is.
It'll happen.
I could see that being a way to finance some of that stuff. Is like some TV show is going to do like a reality show about like Big Brother where they watch everything. I could see that. I mean, they've got reality shows where they literally just watch people eat on the internet, which I don't understand why it's a thing, but people pay good money to watch some lady eat food. Talking about.
I'm sure there's a specific kink for that.
World problem.
Well, and 34. Think about low gravity sports. There's also that too. It's going to change a lot of that. You're going to have, football on the moon will be pretty interesting.
Do you think anyone's going to? Was it? Who was the astronaut that did the first golf putt in space? I'm drawing a blank. He did one on the moon. One of the first astronauts that went up snuck a club.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if we're going to ever beat his record.
He putted for longer than the drive.
Yeah.
They did it at Stargate. They sent it to another galaxy. So there you go. The longest drive ever.
Well, we haven't officially acknowledged that that's real. So until they let us see what's under Cheyenne Mountain, we'll give it to the NASA people for now.
They are scams. They are scams.
So that's interesting, though, the sports, because, the military likes to field their teams. And what's PT going to look like in space?
I think that's increasingly going to be less relevant. Especially because we got exoskeletons that they've been working on for more than 20 years. And that's going to be a game changer. You can hump 100 miles with 200-pound pack, and it's all assisted with hydraulics and lithium-ion batteries. So that's going to be very interesting to see.
That sets the Earth standards, though. So I mean, what if you're out in the void with no gravity for a month or 3 or 2 or a year?
Yeah,
and then you got to make a drop, and that happens. How do you
right? Your bones are all delicate.
Yeah, and you jump into some place with twice the gravity
or bacteria
of Earth.
That you're not used to.
Yeah, that there's a lot of variables. I think that comes with all of that kind of infantry stuff. But are we there anywhere near that? Probably not.
And how
well, I think we're going to
go ahead.
I think we're going to see like CRISPR and all that good stuff. You're going to see genetic editing to strengthen your bones, to speed up your respiratory and circulatory systems, to harden your muscles. I think we're going to start seeing that, and they're going to have to if the human body's just not going to withstand what military operations.
We're going to have to develop,
without
like artificial gravity, procreation is going to be an issue too. Because they've tested it in artificial gravity in weightless with lab animals, and because you don't have gravity pulling you down in the normal places, like the baby wouldn't stay in the right spot, and it ended up killing the mothers.
He said,
"What's that?"
Bungee cord.
The normal places.
Yeah, so gravity keeps the baby centered in the belly in a certain place, right? But what happens when you don't have gravity, and now it's like bumping into the heart or pushing against the rib cage or whatever?
Well, what's funny, The Expanse actually addressed that. If you've read the books,
I have not yet. It's on my TBR.
Yeah, they actually address that. They take them to one of the moons or whatever with low radiation and better than average gravity. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
interesting.
I don't know. I haven't looked in with that far. I haven't read the books yet, and I mean to, but.
Oh, they're awesome.
I own them, but I was been waiting to make it through the whole series on the show, the TV show first, and then I'll go back. So,
yeah. Well, the thing that sucks about writing is you don't have a lot of time for reading anymore.
Right? Yeah, audiobooks.
Audiobooks are a thing. So every time when I go for my walks, I listen to books on tape. Right now, I'm waiting for one.
Yep. Just ask Terry and his 700 audiobooks.
I'm actually curious, Terry. I mean, when you started writing, because you were mounting 50 calories. Jesus Christ. Was that hard for you, or to read and write at the same time when you first started out?
It was a little bit hard for me, but since I was basically expanding on the kind of things I like to read, I just fit it into my reading. Writing is almost like reading for me now.
Okay. That's cool. I've been trying to do it. I'm just started out as well, so I'm a new guy. But as I read books, I keep freaking out about if I'm doing it as well as the guys I'm reading are, and then it's like it's a mind. You know what it is.
Yeah. My advice to you on that is the only person you're competing with is yourself. Make yourself a better writer. Every time you tell a story, work on trying to fix something you think you're a little bit short on. Don't worry about how good everybody else is doing, because those other authors, they're not worried about how anybody else is doing, or if they are, that's going to hurt them in the long run. Just work about yourself, man. You're doing great.
Thanks.
That's sound advice.
Apologies.
No, that's cool. So does anybody else have other thoughts before we wrap this up? Our first attempt at a round table.
No.
What about you, Logan? Any other thoughts on the Space Force?
Probably not that are for consumption of the public.
All right. I just want to know what the first Space Ranger is going to look like.
It's going to look like the Power Rangers.
No. Very tiny shorts.
It doesn't end well for the Power Rangers. Didn't that one guy get arrested for like stabbing someone with a samurai sword?
Probably.
Yep.
The Red Ranger or something, I remember.
Yes.
But anyway, so as we bring this to a close, so Edward Hudson, where can listeners find you?
Hey, I'm at www.edwardhudson or edwarddhudson.com, and I'm on Facebook.
All right, and obviously everyone's links will be in the show notes, so you can just scroll down.
Oh yeah, see the scroll notes.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
What about you, Terry? Where can they find you?
They can find my books on Amazon. I'm the only Terry Mixon there. They can find me on Facebook. That's where I hang out.
All right, outstanding. What about you, Logan? Do you have any of your social media set yet with your first book not launched yet?
Don't talk trash to me, bro. Not while we're doing this.
He will fly through this internet.
I'm on Facebook. That happens. It's Santa Claus with a cigar and a machine gun. And then I'm on Gmail. It's lowersgotbooks@gmail.com.
Yeah, my website is chriswinderbooks.com. They can find the show at www.sfshenanigans.com, and our email address is podcast@sfshenanigans.com.
Thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Chris Winder, I'm J.R. Handley, and this was the Sci-Fi Shenanigans Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of space and all things that go boom. All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that archived episode that was in the digital memory hole that we found. We thought you'd enjoy it. So thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber and Doc Cisca, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the archive for the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back at our regular scheduled time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom.